It's episode 87 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guest is Holly Bartolo.
Yay! Hello!
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very good.
I like the waving.
Yes. I don't know where that started. That's thank you for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about Understandably Improv.
Yes.
Who or what is that?
Okay, so Understandably Improv, there is 6 of us, 2 girls, 4 guys, myself, a lady called Caroline Morgan, Ben Pearson, James Barras Banks, James Stone and Michael Lewis.
Wow.
And it's really weird. We dabble mainly in short form improv, but we sort of have tried to intertwine it with a narrative, so it's sort of a story with short form along the way. So yeah, that's what we're doing. But it's really quite funny because a lot of people have issues with our name.
Really?
So like, we thought it was quite easy to say because it came from the word understandably. We were doing the alphabet game a lot as like practice, and it was always sort of for you. It always ended up being sort of understandably as our word, and that's how it became like an inside joke. And then someone mentioned, "Oh, let's do that as our name," and that's how it came. But I would say out of all of the shows we've done, 80% of people can't say the word understandably. So we've got a video now on our Facebook page where we've all are saying it, so we can send it to people before shows so they can actually see how to pronounce our name. And we also have a shortened version of our name to try and avoid that too, called PS Improv.
Right.
It's sort of, shortening it. And we had a meeting before Christmas because a few of us were concerned. No one can say our name. Shall we actually change our name to PS Improv? And then majority of our group were like, no, we will not change our name. We will stick by this name. People will learn our name. So we've kept the both of them. So
And I've also seen you refer to them as Panders as well.
it's sort of, I think it's because it was sort of like a family. I'm doing air quotes for people who can't see me. It's sort of what we call each other, like, oh, you're a punder. It's sort of like, I suppose when you have, like when you're a fan of a group, you start saying, or like, I think Peter Andre's fans are called something like Andrettes or something.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a pop fact that I was not aware of.
I interviewed a lot of huge Peter Andre fans one year for a show I was working
Did you
on.
really?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Was this Insania era?
No, this was only about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, right.
And one of the people I interviewed, I know it's completely off topic, but it's quite a fun thing. One of the people I interviewed, her and her husband, they have like a kid about 7 years old, but one of their rooms in their house is a whole shrine to Peter Andre. So you learn a lot. But that's the idea of the whole punders thing, is we call ourselves punders.
We should perhaps explain why you were interviewing Peter Andre fans.
Probably that's
what your job was.
All right,
you weren't a social worker. It's like...
Yeah, so what is your problem today? No, I work in television. I work as an video editor now and motion graphics, but when I first started in TV, I was working as a graphic designer in all different departments as development. So one of my jobs was sitting in development meetings where they were coming up with ideas, and then I would design like the layouts of these pamphlets that would go to all of the TV companies and show them what these TV ideas were. So randomly I knew all these people from school and from work, of these crazy fans. So like I worked with someone in Greg's in Bournemouth that had spent over 30 grand on Gary Barlow merchandise.
Wow.
And like had 6 tattoos of Gary Barlow and legally changed her middle name to Barlow. And I know, so I had all these people that I ended up interviewing that I hadn't spoken to for years about their things. And then the Peter Andre lot, I went to school with one of them, we took them, there's a thing called a taster tape in TV where you do like a tester tape or like a little show reel to show them. We took them to Peter Andre's house and filmed them outside just waiting for him to come out, and he wasn't there. And like sort of with presents and stuff for him. So it's really weird, some of the stories I could tell you, but I don't think we have time.
Wow.
So yes, so that's how Panders came about, is sort of in rehearsals we were just always calling ourselves Panders, and it's sort of stuck, and we quite like it because it's sort of like, oh, we're family.
So how does this being a family display itself? Do you argue all the time, and is one of you very racist at Christmas?
No. Well, I don't spend Christmas with people with them, so as far as I'm putting my hands down, I don't know. But no, we don't fight. I think our group. It's amazingly. I'm quite amazed at how good it's been, our group, because the original group was me and a guy called James Stone, and we formed with people that we did a course with last year with Stephen Davidson from Improv.
Oh yeah.
And there was quite a few of us, and it ended up being we formed in January last year, and then by about February we'd lost a few people because some of them were actors, they had to go on tour. So there was 4 of us, a guy called Kevin and a girl called Chloe was also there, and that's how we came up with the name and stuff. But then by April, May, completely out of the blue and completely 2 separate cases, Kevin was from America and Chloe was Australian, and both around the same time they both lost their visas.
Oh no.
So they both had to go away. So then we were looking for new people to join. It was a bit up in the air whether we were going to continue, but we thought, no, we love improv, let's see what we can do. And Caroline and James Burris-Banks, we actually met at a drop-in that C3 something used to do on Tuesdays. And
the greatly missed
I
C3
know.
something that used to happen on Tuesdays.
Bring them back!
Come back, Colleen, come back.
But yeah, so I was already friends with them both since I first moved back to London last year. And I knew that Caroline was desperate to be part of a group, even though she wasn't really a short former.
Yeah.
And James was sort of... He came to some of our rehearsals because he had been to the drop-ins, and sometimes once it got cancelled and he ended up coming along, and then he sort of stuck along, but he didn't properly join our group to the end, like August last year. And Caroline wanted to test out, see if she liked it, and she became a great fit, so she stayed. And then Ben and Mike, it was really weird because it was so random how we found them. We needed new people, and there was an improv picnic that happens in London as an annual thing between Hoopla, the nursery, and everyone.
Yeah.
And I literally spoke to Ben and Mike for about 10 minutes each, and I both took their Facebook details, and they were in the group the next week. And I tell you what, I never thought from just having a small conversation with people that they would end up being such a good fit. And like, it's crazy how well we fitted, like just from that tiny conversation. And now they're like, we all just blend, like we all have like not disagreements, but like when we come up with new ideas, we always test new ways of working and stuff. It's not, we never fight, but it's just, I'm shocked at how strong our relationship and friendships are. And like we've had even responses from people when they come to see us that they're actually shocked, they actually love our energy on stage, which I think is quite an important thing to do the sort of show that we're doing anyway. So
That's lovely, that's really nice. I mean, is there anything you've done to kind of engender that? Have we just been lucky with a combination of people?
It's sort of, we haven't really done anything as in like, we haven't had coaching or anything like that. It's sort of, Ben came from sort of a show background because he used to be part of a group called The Shambles up in York. So he'd done quite a few shows at university with them. They're a short form, and they've been to Edinburgh Fringe quite a lot as well. And it was really weird, actually. The week before he joined, I actually interviewed The Shambles for my blog, my site.
Right.
So it was really weird that we had managed to, like, this person that I had a photo of on my computer at home. I didn't realise it was him until obviously, so that was a bit weird.
Well, so he came round and he saw, oh, Holly, you've got my picture on your computer. That's an awkward moment.
No, he told me his background, and I was like, I have your picture, and he was like, that's weird. And then I explained the situation. But because he's comes from that sort of background, he's quite good at coaching. And then, so what we do is because he's very good at coaching from his experiences he's had. He brings a lot of games that he hasn't seen down in the south being performed, which we've done on stage, and they've had good, feedback and stuff. So that's fun, that they're new stuff. And then we have James Stone, who's used to be an actor. I think he does a bit of acting still. I don't want to say he doesn't, because I'm sure he does. But he comes from quite a good, strong acting background as well. So he brings that sort of thing to the table. But then people like myself or Caroline or the other James, we sometimes come up with new ideas that may not have even been done before, or just silly little things just to test them. So there's never been any arguments. We just test stuff and see if it works, and then if it doesn't work, we try and wonder why it doesn't work or what we can bring. And then also Michael brings stuff as well. I forgot to mention him. He's sort of in the corner. But no, he, you know, everyone brings their own ideas along and stuff. So it's not as if like, and I think that's good that we are sort of bringing stuff to the table all the time. And I think that's what works, is that we all sort of bring something new, or we try stuff out, and you know, we're not afraid to try something different each time, which is good.
And it's really lovely that you've got a combination of people that works together that well. I don't know how common that is.
Like I said, I was shocked of it to work so well, because there were a couple of people throughout the summer that we had join. They were lovely people, but obviously it wasn't probably the right time for them to be part of a group. And you know, it was trying to find people that would fit. And even though the dynamics changed when Kevin and Chloe left, because we were all completely different, you know, you meld to who you are when you're with new people. I think it's just, I think the more we work together, that, you know, the stronger it becomes. And because everyone was sort of connected, because I knew them and I sort of brought them in, it was quite, I think the best thing that happened is that I was on an 8-week musical course with Film Lum. And I went away, when they were doing rehearsals, I was sort of doing the musical stuff as well. So I think coming away a little bit actually helped them sort of mould, instead of being, oh, we know Holly, and sort of going that way. It was quite nice to actually just sort of walk away, let, you know, sort of everyone mould together without, you know, it was quite nice to walk away from it.
That's a really interesting thing, yeah.
Not that I was controller, I wasn't doing anything like that, but I feel sometimes when you introduce people, even in friends environments, like when you're like, oh, there's a friend of a friend, I think sometimes to actually mould with the friend of a friend, you sort of have to have your time alone with them. And you know, it was sort of nice going out to this 8-week course and then coming back after 8 weeks and being like, oh, they're so good together. So yeah.
That's really cool. So if somebody came along to a Panders, understandably PS Improv show, what could they expect?
See, this way it gets even more complicated with names. So we have a show called Improv Towers. It was based on another idea, but I'm going to tell you what the real thing is that we're doing. So we have one host every show, and the host, we always rotate it, so it's not always the same host. And these improvisers have been sent to Improv Towers to test themselves, to show how good they are at improv. And whoever wins gets to leave the tower, but the rest of them have to stay and do all the social media stuff in the dungeon forever. So that's the concept of the show.
It's a really interesting interview process.
So each time we do it, we always change the host, so everyone has a go at doing that sort of thing. And with the host part, it's sort of a little bit scripted, just so obviously everyone brings their own personality to it, but because of the structure that we've got, it sort of needed to be slightly scripted to sort of bring the games in and sort of form together. So yeah.
So what sort of thing would they say when they introduce the show?
Welcome to Improv. So we don't just go on, we have music, we have lights, we sort of jazz it up. And the first time we did this properly, everyone, like, we didn't go on to, we told the host not to introduce us and just to make music come on. And I think no one knew what was going on, because we were on a night where, like a lot of London, it was long form shows and we were near the end. So all this music went on. I think everyone was like, what's going on? And then there I come on with this, we've got like a hat and like a stick which is made like of a skeleton hand called Bruce the skeleton. And then we all theme ourselves, so I had like gothic makeup on because it was Halloween, and then we go onto the music and go like something like, welcome to Improv Towers, my name's Holly, the master of the keys, and welcome to tonight's show. and then it goes on.
That sounds like a flavour. I feel we've got a flavour. So what sort of games do you then play?
Every single show we've done, we've tried to mix it up. Like, they're all short form games, but we don't always want to do the same thing, because you never know who's in the audience, if they've seen us before. And also we like trying new stuff out too. So if we're doing a 10-minute set, we tend to have 3 different sorts of games. So the sort of games we try and do is, the first game is either a group game where everyone's involved, or something that's like sort of word based, or something similar to that. So we've done Story Die before. What did we do in our last show? This is really bad, I should remember, but I can't remember. We tried a new game out, which was one that Ben used to do up north, and I think it's called Mirrors. So you have 2 people at the front of the stage facing each other, and then on the left hand side of the stage, behind the person at the front, you have another person, and they're the mirror. and the person facing... It's a really complicated... Imagine a triangle. And the person at the point of the triangle can only move when the person at the back of the stage moves. So you're not in control of your body, but you still have to play a consistent scene. So we asked the audience for like... sort of, we used to do it with like an old-fashioned job you would have in medieval times or something. And then we would have to make a scene from that. So the idea of the person at the front who's not being the puppet... Theirs is sort of to keep it, like, be the straight guy and sort of keep it sort of level and sort of deal with the crazy. So in the last few shows we've done that, James Brassbanks has been the guy that's been our straight... He's very good at keeping a story on, you know, on a flat path, and you've got this level of crazy going. And I've ended up being the puppet of the person puppeteering me. And it's a really fun game, and I think it's something that not a lot of people have seen because, like... Ben has been to a lot of shows in London and he hasn't seen people doing it, so I don't know how many groups are doing it in London, but we always had a good thing of it, and it's fun to play as well. So.
Yes, no, that sounds much better than Storyteller Die. I really don't like Storyteller Die.
You see,
it just goes on for ages.
You know what is weird? I think I trained in Newcastle and I loved it in Newcastle. But since coming down to London, I don't like it in London. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it was because of the show format in Newcastle, but I don't like it in London, and I don't know why.
Oh, I'm just a bit like, do we have to? Anyway,
I like the way of you have to keep a story going. Like, I like that idea of it, but I don't know whether it's because I've got past doing that sort of game, or whether it's just I prefer the way I used to do it. I don't know. I don't know why, but I agree with the amount of people we were playing it with as well. It wasn't work. It was just the first. It was the first show with all of us, so it was sort of like we tried it because we didn't have a lot of time to put at the time.
Very standard, very popular game. Perhaps I am just seen a lot of shows. And
I agree, as a show format it's not a good game. It's a good warm-up game for like rehearsals and stuff, but I don't know if I like it.
Fair enough. And then, so you start off with a kind of a word, does he say?
More of a word or something that's sort of warming up the audience sort of game. And then the second game is always it's either like, it's sort of a longer game. We sort of make sure it's a longer, because it's the middle bit you want. It's like a burger, you want the meat to be the big, So it's sort of about 3 or 4 people that tend to be it. So there's always one at the side. So we've done sports commentator a few times.
How does that work?
So you have 2 people at the side that are the sports commentators, and then you have 2 people on the stage that are in the action space. I keep doing these weird bunny fingers, sorry.
It's because they were doing bunny next door. Really, I don't know if the microphone picked that up.
And then you ask the audience for like a really mundane, boring task they do every day, so like brushing their teeth. And then the 2 people in the middle will then perform brushing their teeth as they're part of the Olympic Championships of brushing their teeth. So the commentators will set it up like, we're here today, nice sunny London Stadium, here to see James and Ben, and then you sort of beat them up. We'll beat them up. Warm them up with that sort of thing. And then once they've introduced them, they then say, and they're off. And then the 2 people that are performing, they get competitive on stage of brushing teeth, and it's quite fun because obviously the crazy of the improvising of the action people doing the brushing the teeth, the commentators have to justify. But at the same time, the commentators are throwing things in for them to actually do. And it's really fun because you end up having things like people getting like knocked out with a toothbrush or toothpaste being squirted in their eye, and it's a really fun game to do, and I think from the audience reactions we've had, they quite enjoy it. And we're quite lucky in our group because we have some people that are really good at physical comedy. So Michael is a really good physical comedy person, and the reason we originally started doing commentating was because he's very good at sound effects, and sort of it develops into this game. And when James is doing it, James Brassbanks is doing it as well. They're very good at action and playing off each other. So when you see that on a stage, it works really well. And then the final game, we'd always do something that was silly, but not something the audience probably wouldn't expect. So a lot of our shows that we've done, we used to do a game called 3-Date Dinner, or it's something like that. I don't actually know the name for it. So you have someone on the date. So they would, again, so to speak, play the straight person in the scene. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but you know what I mean. And then they'd be on a date with one person with 3 different personalities.
All right.
So there would be 3 improvisers. So one of them would be a emotion, and they would have to like amp it up to the highest they can. So if you're excited, you have to be like, "Hey!" all that. The second person would be something that they would obsess with. So we've had like you believe you're a cat, or you believe you're made of wood, or something silly like that. And then the final one would be like a cartoon character or like a TV character.
All right.
So we've had things like Batman, Homer Simpson, and then the idea is that you flip between the 3 of you to make a scene. So like Caroline's and this one person with a date, but then they have to tap in and tap out.
Right, yes, yeah.
Make a scene. So we've done that quite a few times, and that got a good film. And then before Christmas, we decided to completely do something different, and I think we're going to bring it back again because I found it really fun to do, and also I think the audience weren't expecting it. So we were playing what is the name? It goes by a lot of different names. It's the hand one, look no hands, sometimes people call it.
Right, yes. So you got the person standing with their hands on the hips, and then the other person puts their arms through.
Yeah.
I've heard it called arms through.
That's it, arms through. Yeah, I've heard it for so many different names now. I couldn't even tell you. And we call it something different every time as well. So, so yes, we do the arms through game. And when we were rehearsing it, we were trying to think of new, like, different ways of doing it, or how we could go about doing it. And then we felt the best way of doing it was ways we have seen it performed, where you have like a TV show host interviewing someone. Usually when we've seen it done, it's usually like they're, you know, the person's just moving their hands. Obviously, on Whose Line Is It Anyway, you get them actually using like cakes and throwing. Yeah. So we wanted to sort of try and bring that sort of element to the stage, but in a way that we could do it, and it obviously wasn't. So what we did was we had Mike as the armless person and me as the arms, and we made a makeup demonstration.
What, with real makeup?
Yep. And it was my job, without even seeing what I'm doing, to put makeup on Mike, and like he had like lipstick all over his face, but it was quite, the audience reaction was like, I think it was quite, from what we heard afterwards as well, they actually weren't expecting it and they actually really enjoyed it. So I think it's something we're probably going to do again, or think of a new way of doing it. And so yeah, that's sort of the concept. Is you have the talking or the sort of warm-up game, the action game with about 4 people, and then we finish with a silly game to sort of round it off. And then the end of it, to sort of finish off the show, we sort of have like I can't decide who wins, it's up to you, and then we get the audience to vote. And then so that's basically the concept of our show in a nutshell.
That's really fun. It's really fun. And it's nice that you're doing new games rather than, I mean, I suppose I'm not the average audience because I see a lot of improv shows, and I love short form. I think it's, you know, it's brilliant. But you know, sometimes it's just nice to see. It's nice to be surprised. Yeah. And once you're surprised, you know, you're kind of more engaged with the show. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here and go, okay, why short form? Why play short form? You should be doing long form. All the cool kids are doing long form. You see, I will stand in short form's corner, and I will fight short form's corner, and I will stand there and I will moan. Like, I will invite you to do so now.
Don't get me wrong. Long form, I have seen a lot of good long form shows, and I could tell you something that I really liked. But for me, because of what I think, the reason I love short form so much is I love silly. I've always loved wacky. For me, the thing about improv is that I'm not doing it for what I think some people see it as an art form. I don't know if that's right, but that's how I see how some people see it as. I do it because it escapes me from I say it escapes me from what I do as a job. It sort of does. Like, I have quite a heavy, intense job, and improv to me is just a fun thing to do. And I like short form for the fact of that they are short form, they are short games. They are like, you have to be a really wacky, crazy character. You know, you don't have to build up a scene. You can actually go in and, you know, be a crazy character with loads of arms and like, or be snooty, or that's what I like about it is that it's to the point, it's there and it's done. And I like the fact that the thing I like about short form is where it's fast paced, and you know, you're guessing when you're seeing it. Like, you know, if you're not keen on something that you're seeing, at least it's going to be done in 2 minutes. Yeah. And you know, I do like long form to watch it, and I have done a bit of long form, but for me personally, it's not something I want to do. It's like, long form to me is like, I suppose, it's a bit like Marmite. Like, I like some, but I don't like all of them.
That's not how Marmite works.
No, but for me, that's how I like Marmite. I have to be in the mood for Marmite. And that's how.
Right. Fair enough. That's very much not the
like a love or hate,
that's not the traditional advertising that Marmite have gone for. It's not. You like it sometimes when you're in the mood for it, and other times you don't like it when you're not in the mood for it. That's in many ways a less strong advertising campaign.
Well, for me, that's how I see Marmite. I have to be in the mood to eat Marmite, and I have to be in the mood to watch long form. I would say that out of all the long form stuff, like there's a lot of long form shows I've really enjoyed. I recently saw Angela from Hoopla's show, Danny and Sandy.
Oh, yeah,
And I thought that was really clever. I really liked that. It was a great
amazing.
show. And I like long form shows, like things like that one. When you watch it, you're engaged, and you're engaged with what you're seeing. And I love musical improv. Like I've seen so many good long form musical improvs that I will happily say that I'm a huge fan of that. But when it comes to actual long form, I understand the art form. I get why people like it, but for me personally, it's not something I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Like I've done a few of them. I enjoy doing them, like performing in them, but watching them. I'm really like, I like them if they're going to entertain me, but I don't know, with short form it's just like, you can just be wacky, and I think that's why I like it. I have sometimes such a serious job that it's quite nice to channel it somewhere.
Yeah. No, I entirely agree, and I love short form as well as long form, and especially if you've got a night with a couple of groups on. If a short form group come on, I go, oh, brilliant! I could just relax and just enjoy myself for a bit, and we're not gonna. Because I love improv, but sometimes I just find it exhausting. So if you come on with a high energy short form group, it just gives a bit of variety to the night. So I'm always very glad when I see one on the bill.
I mean, I went to guest speaker before Christmas for the first time, Suki Webster's thing, and that was a whole night, which is they do short form and then they do the speech. They do like a guest speech where they have to have different styles of doing a speech. And that was one of the best shows I've been to since being in London. I was so impressed at how good they all are. Not just the short form games, but the actual speeches at the end. I mean, one of them did a whole speech for 10 minutes in poetry, and that to me was just so... Yeah. I love poetry anyway, but just things like that, that's what I like about it. You can do that with short form, whereas with long form, you're constantly thinking about what's just happened, I'm a video editor in my job. I don't want to be doing it on stage as well. And I think that's probably why I like short form as well, is because I'm an editor and I predominantly work in short form editing. To me, I like things cut, like when it needs to be cut, and sometimes with long form, they're not cut where they should be cut. Yes. And it's not everyone. It's just sometimes just like, it needs to be an edit. It needs to be an edit. I don't know whether that's because I'm an editor. It's just that thing that constantly is in my head. It's sort of I think that's my first short form, is you don't have to worry about that. It's sort of.
That's really interesting. The transferring of that editing from one part of your life into the improv part of your life. I've not considered that would be transferable skills.
Well, I think I've only realised it recently, because I never understood, like as you know yourself, in London, long form is huge. Like, long form is the way to go with a lot of improv. But from actually thinking about it, I think that's why I don't like long form, is because, for me, as an editor, I'm always given like lots of different video footage to cut and to cut it short. And for me, long form improvisation is like, to me is like the long footage I get. Like, it's not cutting out the bits that need to go away, it's all of it. And I think maybe that's the reason why I'm not the fan of long form that I should be the fan of. I think that's what it is.
Fair enough.
So, but with musical improv, that completely, I ignore that. I love musical improv. So you can justify anything with a song and a dance.
So you mentioned you did the Hoopla course with Phil Lunn.
Yes.
How was that?
Loved it. I've actually signed up to the advanced one this year as well.
Brilliant.
So I'm looking forward to doing that. I felt like, since when I first started doing improv, when I first trained, I found every time I was coming home with a massive smile on my face and feeling like a kid in a candy shop. And I've only been doing improv, I would say, for just, it's about 2 and a bit years, I think now. And through the time, I've obviously had bits where I've been, this is so fun, and like learning from Shem from C3 something. Some of his lessons, they were some of the best I've ever had. He's great, the way he's got so much energy. But I found with Phil Lund's course, it's like I had that thing when I first started improv, the feeling of like, I can't stop smiling. I feel really amazing and, oh my God, this is so clever. Like, how are we doing this? Like, this rhyme is so simple. But I think because I play instruments as well, and I always have done since the age of 3. I think the whole factor of bringing everything together, I love doing anything music, to me was just, oh my goodness, this has just opened everything up for me. So yeah, I always had a big smile on my face every time I was doing that.
The fun thing about musical improv is that you get back some of the joy and excitement that you get when you first start doing improv, because it's hard, but it's really rewarding. And when you manage to do it, there's a great amount of satisfaction. Even if you don't manage to do it and you fail and you give it a try, that's also very satisfying as well. Yeah,
I mean, I totally agree with you. It's the fact of when you start learning how to do the structures of the songs and you do them the first time, it's like, oh, I actually did it. That's really cool. And then even the people that, you know, probably weren't from a musical background, I mean, to see how much they developed over 8 weeks and then to go on stage is something they never thought they would do. It's an amazing thing to see, and I don't know, I just loved it, and I can't wait to do the next part because it's great.
Excellent. So how did you get into improv in the first place?
So in 2015 I started writing a site called the Phoenix Remixed. The reason I started writing it is that I've sort of, when I was younger, I wanted to be a journalist, and I went to university to study journalism and then realised that I didn't like law and I didn't like politics, so I left the course. Okay. But I've always wanted to keep writing. So when I was at university, I was always writing, you know, and it went on and went on and went on. But then in 2014, 2015, one of my friends from uni he had a podcast as well. That was more about like gaming and films and things, but he had like a website to go along with it, and he wanted contributors, so I was writing for him, and then he turned round midway through 2015 and was like, I'm not in the mood to write anymore. People aren't writing for it. The only one that wants to write for it is my mum. So it turned into his mum's blog. So I was like, okay. And they said, you can still write for it. And I was like, this is a bit weird, writing for someone, my friend's mum's blog seems a bit weird. So I thought the best thing to do was to start my own. So I started the Phoenix Remix as sort of like something to channel my writing, because I find if I don't write, I sort of have like, I suppose it's like, you know how you get your stress or energy out? Yeah. To me, writing is a way of dealing, I don't have stress, but like dealing with just writing and your creative juices, you know, that sort of thing.
I keep a longhand diary, and it's exactly that. I find if I don't get it out on the page, I just feel that it's all kind of crowding in on me. So I know exactly what you mean.
So in the end of 2015, I got a job in Newcastle, and I moved up there because it was in live television, which is what I wanted to do. So I moved up there not knowing anyone, not having any family up there, so I was pretty much on my own. And all I was doing was, I said to myself, every month I'm going to a gig. That's all I said to myself. And I went to, in the first couple of months there, when I didn't really know anyone apart from work people, I went to like, Jimmy Carr was fine. And the next month, the only thing I was One Direction. So I went to One Direction.
How were One Direction?
They were actually really good.
Sure they were.
I was shocked at how good they were. They were actually quite entertaining.
Who's your favourite One Dia?
I can't even. I suppose they were all good performing together. I couldn't I suppose nowadays on their solo stuff, I suppose out of all of them I listen to maybe, what are their names? Louis? Is it Louis? I don't know. The one that does all the dance stuff. I don't like Zayn. I don't know. But anyway. But I wanted to do comedy, basically. Oh, this has gone into more of a pop conversation than an improv conversation.
It's only taken 87 episodes, and now we're doing the pop conversation. We should do that.
This is what happens when we're in a room together.
I was just thinking about another time what happened when we were in a room together, but what I mean is we were on stage dancing and singing to the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, and my friend from Newcastle who's an improviser was very jealous because he loves Backstreet Boys. And you know what, I'm not even joking, I will go back to improv in a minute, but I'm shocked since I've going into my 20s, I'm shocked at how many people that are boys love Backstreet Boys. Honestly, the amount of people that I've met that are guys that are obsessed with Backstreet Boys is shocking.
Well, I wouldn't say I was obsessed, but I find the message of Backstreet's back very reassuring, because as long as there'll be music, they'll be coming back for more. And I hadn't even realised that I'd missed them, but the fact that they were coming back reassures me, makes me feel better. I
used to know someone in my university that whenever he like had a few drinks, he used to get really passionate and cry about Backstreet Boys.
Really? What's that one about? There's one called The Perfect Fan, isn't there? It's all about their mums. Yeah. That's sweet.
Anyway, back to Improv. Enough about boy bands. We could be here for a long time.
Everybody.
So I wanted, basically, I was thinking I was doing improv before I moved away from London, but I was commuting 2 hours one way for work every day. So I was shattered. So when I moved to Newcastle and I had no friends, I had no work, get the violins out, I looked at what there was to do in the area, and I came across the Suggestibles that did improv. So I was like, okay, that sounds fun. So I went along to, they do either the 6-week beginners course or they do 3 weekends at the stand. I'm not sure if they do the weekends anymore, but they definitely do the weekdays. So I went along for the weekends because I thought it would get me out of the house and doing something apart from sightseeing. And I went along, and that's how I got into improv. And I wrote about it. Like, I thought, let's write an article about it. And ever since I've started improv, every single week I've done improv, I've written about it.
Wow.
So I've got, like, on my site, I've got records of every single thing I've done, and it's amazing to see how much you develop from looking through it. And I fell in love with it. And Ian and Bev of the Suggestibles are so good at improv. They used to train with they've done shows and stuff with people like Josie Lawrence and people like that, so they really know what they're talking about, and they just taught me a lot of stuff, and I trained with them. And in Newcastle, they were really the people to go to. They were the improv scene. There wasn't really, as far as I knew, there wasn't any other improv people to go to train, and that's how I got into improv. And the community in Newcastle for the actual improv side they're such a lovely bunch of people that you didn't want to be anywhere else. You just were always, they were just lovely people to be around, and there was such a great energy. And
so what sort of things were they doing? Is that short form, long form?
When I was up there, they were predominantly doing short form. So we were obviously doing the basics when I was in the basic courses with them. And then we went on to do stuff like, all short form stuff, but it was more focusing on things like, various stuff. We did trust, like how to do trusting. So we had one of their Suggestibles called Tom. He was a great trainer. He only came in now and again, but he did the most craziest things. I've never done an improv again in my life. One of the things he decided for us to do is get into pairs, one person blindfolded in each pair, and then put music on and just walk around the room. And the next time he said, if you can, walk and jump around the room. And this guy called Karam and this girl Jackie, they were so trusting that she was jumping in the air everywhere and all that sort of thing. So it was great. It was absolutely amazing, that sort of thing. And we did like lessons on like character, opening scenes, because the thing I found quite scary when I started doing improv, like I don't feel it anymore, so I'm not sure if we do it a lot down in the south, is as part of, they used to have like a monthly show called The Rat Race, and like what it used to be, the format's changed now, but back then it was like you'd have different rounds, and they'd always be the same. So you'd have like the alphabet game, and then you'd have like new choice.
Yes.
But then there'd be
new
one.
Choice.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm not on the ball. And then they have one that was like you go into the scene with no suggestion, and that scared the hell out of me, because to me, going on stage with no suggestion, that to me was really, really scary, actually going on. So we and I think it was scary to quite a lot of people, because it was something that people weren't used to being, given a word or something to go on. So we did a few lessons on training on that sort of thing as well.
You see, I quite like going on stage with nothing, because even if I get a suggestion, I forget the suggestion really quickly.
You see, nowadays, because obviously when you do drop-in sessions, when I used to receive 3 something, you don't always get a suggestion. And I don't find it an issue now. But back then, I found it a huge barrier and a huge wall to come across. I found it the most scariest thing.
I think it is the sort of thing that the more improv you do, the easier it gets, because you know to make eye contact with the other person, and you can get a lot of information from that. But yeah, I mean, I understand how, you know, it could be a scary thing to do.
I mean, like I said, from since coming down here, I haven't felt it, but that I don't know why I found it so daunting. So I decided one of the shows, because before we did the shows, we always just say who wants to do what. Is there any suggestion? You know. And I said in one of my last shows up there, I was like, I want to do that. I said, I want to try it. I want to throw myself in the deep end. And I went on, and like now, if there's no suggestion, you sort of know to go on with like an action or like a character, and that builds the scene. But back then, because I was still quite new to improv, I didn't know that at all. And I went on stage, and I just had this idea. I was thinking of, randomly Lisa Simpson came into my head, and there's an episode with Lisa Simpson where her tap shoes go crazy, and I went on stage and just started doing this random like I was a scientist in a lab, and we'd forgotten to assign someone to come on stage with me, so there was already an awkwardness because I got to come on stage. And then I sort of felt a bit bad because I threw my scene partner into this scene where I had this idea of these crazy shoes going mad, and Pef ended up getting involved in actually, you know, going with it. But it was so wacky, and I think my idea when I went on was just go wacky, and it will sort itself out. But obviously from doing improv more now, I realised you can't just go wacky on stage because everyone's like, what's going on? And it was sort of one of those situations where it wasn't built up as a scene. It felt a bit crazy, and at the time, to me, it was a scary thing to do, because like I said, that was a thing I found scary. And afterwards I found it quite hard to deal with the fact that it wasn't getting a lot of laughs. But when I look at it now, I realise why I hadn't justified anything. I'd just gone on doing wacky dance moves because that's how I coped with the situation at the time. But yeah, that was something I found quite hard to deal with. And now it's weird because now I don't mind going on stage if there's no suggestion. But another thing we learned as well in Newcastle was they did Commedia dell'arte. And that I was shocked at the strength of the power that masks can have on you when you do sort of mask play. And we did it to sort of get introduced into long form. That's how I got introduced to long form, was through the masks.
Wow.
So you'd put a mask on, and then you'd create a character, and then you'd do like a little whatever the character would do to you, you'd create this character. Then after we'd all had our own characters, we then did scenes where we would be two people on stage only talking in gibberish as our characters. And then we played at this massive long form in a hotel, and then after we'd all done it in gibberish, we then took the masks off, and we got told to redo the whole thing again with words.
Wow, that's really interesting.
That's how I got introduced into long form, was by doing Commedia dell'arte and sort of going in that way. So it was a good way to be introduced into long form. Confused the hell out of me of what long form was at first. But in some ways it was really clever to see how it all developed and stuff. But
no, I've done a bit of research into that, a bit of reading, and it seems really interesting. I'd like to do some more, but I haven't managed to do any sort of actual mask work, but I'd like to try and do that this year, because I think it would be interesting to see what that unearths and what kind of characters that accesses.
Well, Caroline from Understandably, she's completely scared of them.
Really?
And she went to the course. I booked on a course, but I couldn't make it, so she took my place. And she went to it to face her fears. And she came back and she said to me, Holly, I can't believe the power it has on me. I can't believe it. I think she was amazed at what it did to her, but at the same time, I don't know if that scared her, because it takes you over. It's such an unusual...
Yes, because it's not you doing the thing, it's the mask, or it's not the mask doing... I don't know. Yeah, it kind of gives you permission to do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's how I got into improv, was through the Suggestibles. And we used to go to shows to see them all the time and stuff, and you know, it's great seeing, because they would have like the short form for a lot of a lot of their show, and then they would do like a 15-minute musical at the end, and that's sort of the first real improv musical I saw was them. They always do it on the base of an Andrew Lloyd Webber title called The Aspects Of. So instead of The Aspects of Love, the audience would then choose the theme. So the aspects of magic, the aspects of this or that. And the best one I saw of theirs, actually there was two really good ones I saw. One of them was The Aspects of Hypnosis. And I was amazed how they created these scenes on stage out of nothing. Like, it ended up being a story about someone gets hypnotised and gets locked in this strange land. And I was amazed at how they brought that to life on stage with just the simplest of props. And then the other one was called The Aspects of Unrequited Love. And that one, again, really amazed me, because I've always been someone who loves physical comedy and like the humour, and like with short form I like it because you can sort of see things outside the box and change the dynamics. And Tom from the Suggestibles is very good at doing that. So everyone was doing like scenes about like, oh, I can't be with him, or oh, I can't be with her. Tom comes on and he does a song about a pigeon who can't be with a human, and it was the most weirdest thing in the world. But it stuck with me to this day because it was the best song, and everyone was on stage dancing like pigeons and singing this random pigeon song.
Cool. So maybe we should talk a little bit more about the Phoenix Remix site.
Yeah.
So you've got various people contributing to it.
Yes, yeah. So the last year or so, we've sort of expanded, and we've got a writing team, which is really like we all do it voluntary, but it's quite nice to have people sort of interested about writing about comedy. So we have Mariana, who's part of Word and Muff, See Through Something, Talking Dog. She does a lot of stuff, and she does stand up now as well. She's become she's jumped on board and becomes a regular writer now for See Through Something. So she's always writing about what shows they've got coming up in Waterloo, what shows she's coming up with Word and Muffers, things like that. And it's really nice having them on board because it's sort of, I think, cross promotes for them. Yeah. But at the same time, if people don't know who they are, there's a doorway for that. And I sort of approached the See Through Something about it last year originally and said, why don't you, because Carlene wanted to write. She said, I want to write, I don't know where to write. And I said, well, write for me. I said, I don't mind. I said, you can do what you want. Yeah. I said, like, if you need someone to push you to write, I'll happily, So they all came on board, and they've done some great things. Like Shem Pennant, he's been in New York a lot, so he live Facebook messaged all the details happening at one of UCB shows. And we got really good feedback on that, and it was amazing to he was doing really in-depth stuff about all these shows he was seeing and things like that, and it was really, so we're trying to probably do that more this year, because I think it's good insight into sort of shows. We have a guy called Jay in Oxford, Corker, and he's a stand-up comedian, and he actually contacted me on Twitter to say he wants to write, and I was like, come on board. So he writes about the Oxford stand-up community, and he interviews acts and stuff down there, because he's a stand-up comedian. He's obviously travelling a lot, so he doesn't write a lot, but it's great the stuff that he is writing. It's really interesting to see what's happening over in, because we initially started doing predominantly stand-up because my love has always been stand-up comedy, but now we're doing more improv and sort of aiming more, doing a lot more improv community stuff now. And then we have a film writer called Karam, who's another improviser, but he loves film, so he wanted to write about film, so I thought it was really good, And we have the weirdest thing. So last summer I decided I wanted to interview loads of people doing festivals, and I thought I'm going to interview people in America. So I started to research what shows and festivals were happening in America, and the Milwaukee Comedy Festival was happening. So I was like, okay, I'll just message a few people and send a few advertising tweets out to see if I can get anyone to talk to us. And we did, and I was like, oh great, this is cool. So we had a few sketch comedy acts, a few improv groups, and then this comedian called John Egan, who does stand up a lot in that sort of area, and he goes on tour a lot in the US. So if you want to find out more about him, Egan J on Twitter. But he does a YouTube channel where he tries all these new and unusual snacks that they have in America. And I was thinking, because I've listened to stand-up comedians like John Robbins and Ellis James, they do something called Tick of a Taste in their podcast, where they trial the UK things. I was thinking, well, people like that sort of thing, and he was trying really like things we never got over here. So cereal where it pops, not like that fairy dust stuff that pops in your mouth.
Yes, popping candy.
Yeah, they put that in cereal. They've made Cheetos with macaroni cheese inside at Burger King.
Oh, I don't think I like the sound of that.
No, but they've done all these unusual flavours and all these unusual snacks, and I was like, that's really interesting. So I ended up talking to him after interviewing him about his show, and we sort of do a collaboration thing now. So every Tuesday I write about Taste of States, which is sort of expanding on what he does as his review videos, and sort of expanding so UK audiences know what these foods are and if they're still in the market. So if they go to America, they can try them for themselves, which is always, I suppose, nice to know. And I think the weirdest thing I ever saw in America was bacon toothpaste. So
well, yes, I suppose if it harms none, then go for it, but not for me.
No, but this year we're trying to, with what I want to do is, because we did a lot of interviewing with a lot of improv groups and a lot last year. I want to try and reach out to more of the UK this year. Like, we've interviewed a few this month, like from Nottingham and from Birmingham. But I think, I'm sure you agree, well, not saying you agree, but because you do an improv podcast as well, it's such a big community now that there's so much to talk about, isn't there? And
yeah, and I'm very much this year hoping to build on what I did last year. I went up to Birmingham last year, had an amazing time, so I'd really like to get to other places in the UK. Because it's so nice meeting improvisers, because even though you don't know them, you have sort of a shared way of working, a shared way of communicating.
Yeah.
And everyone in Birmingham made me feel so welcome. And
Yeah.
I thought, I could live here. I already have a circle of friends that I made much faster than I ever did before I did improv. So
that's what I love about the improv community. It doesn't matter where you go in the UK, everyone is just so friendly.
yeah.
Because when I moved back down here from Newcastle, I was like quite nervous because London is a huge place, and making the initial decision of where to go first is like a scary decision.
Yeah.
And everyone was just really welcoming and really friendly, and like I think you're right as well. Like, it is some people don't even know that there's improv communities in certain areas of the UK.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I moved back down here and I was telling people, I trained in Newcastle. I was like, there's improv in Newcastle. And it's like, yeah, the North East, they're like massive in improv. But again, there's no real channel to promote that, or there's no real channel to show that. And I think by having the podcast that you do and by the site that I'm trying to write, I'm trying to sort of do that. And I've been talking to, like I said, acts in Nottingham and stuff this week, and they're messaging me going like, how did you find us? Like, how? And it's like, well, I'm doing the research obviously, but at the same time, like, I think you need to, London isn't always the only area for improv. There's some massive improv communities out there that people probably may not have heard of about, so yeah, that's why I like, it's nice to talk to them. And it's also interesting to hear about what people do and like the training, or like how they got into improv. And that's how we started our feature, Improv I Changed Our Life. It was literally one of the first things that fascinated me when I started doing improv was I used to ask people how they got into improv, just as a small talk thing. But then I met people that were there because they were in the council and they wanted to train themselves in confidence before doing presentations. Or I met a lot of electrical engineers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which I found out in Newcastle that they're the statistically highest people that do improv, like electrical engineers. Apparently so. That's what I got told. I don't know if it's true, but
that's interesting.
But it was all people with various backgrounds doing it, and I thought, I'm interested in it. I don't know if anyone else could be interested in it, but I asked a few people around just if they wanted to tell their story, and then I had people contacting me saying they wanted to tell their story. I was like, okay, great. And then every single one, I started it in August and we finished in December. It's going to come back again this year. Every single one has been different. No one has gone into improv the same way, and every single story of how improv has done something to their life is amazing. I mean, some of them, like, I asked them because I knew them, but then when I read their story, I was like, oh my goodness, like, I feel like it's really like quite serious how they got, like, some of them are like, it's amazing what improv has done to them and what happened and why they got into improv. And like, some people have done it again, like me, sort of, trying to channel a way of getting into comedy. But everyone's is different, and we've had so many people like commenting us, not even people that are necessarily improvising themselves, saying they're really enjoying actually reading them, because I don't think they realise how much improv actually does to someone. I don't think, I think so. It's a fun thing to read from my perspective, but from also hearing other people's stories on how they find it as well. I think, I mean, there's been news articles recently about what improv is doing for people as well.
Cool. How has doing the Phoenix Remixed site changed your life?
Well, it means I write a lot more, put it that way. it honestly is crazy. Like, when I first started it, I was writing, we had about, well, I didn't really think about people reading it. I literally was writing maybe 1 or 2 articles a week, a bit about music because I love music, and about something in stand-up that I enjoyed doing. And then it gradually grew a bit more that I'd write about because I'm really, well, I don't listen to as much. I do listen to podcasts, but like I was really into like the Radio X podcast, and I still listen to a lot now, but I was sort of listening to those sort of comedians, so like Josh Widdicombe, James Acaster, all that sort of people. So I was writing mainly about them a lot because that's who I was listening to, or who I was watching. And then I would write reviews on the stand-up I was seeing, and then that was what it was. It was just a few things here and there. And then we get to our second birthday last year, and I've written 1,000 articles in 2 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's just giving you an aspect of how much it's risen in, like.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of writing, because I write predominantly a lot of it, but I don't dislike. I like doing it.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Well, that's the main thing, isn't it? What could somebody do to delight you if they were to perform with you on stage?
Ooh. I like it when people give big offers. Like, I like it. I think this is because of my short form background. Like, I love when someone comes on stage in a character. That makes me very happy, because I find sometimes even when you watch short form, not everyone uses the character. They go on stage and like, hi, or they're just like their normal selves, or like a person. They don't like. And I love people that go on stage and actually become a character when they go on stage. So whether it's using their nose to create a character, or their knees or something, I like that. So characters is always a good thing. I think trust as well. Trust is a really important thing. Like when you do scenes with people, that I think it comes obviously with getting to know someone and how they improvise. But when you improvise with someone for the first time, or you're not used to improvising with them, it's always getting used to getting to know them. Some people it works and you gel really well, but sometimes it can be quite. If people aren't willing to give you an offer on stage, it can be quite hard to sort of work with that person in an improv scene. I find sometimes, like, if you don't have a good offer to start with, or if your partner isn't trustworthy to the side of you, like, I'm not a shy person, I'm quite outgoing, but it's the same in social situations, that if I'm in a place with loads of loud people, or a place where I feel uncomfortable, then you're naturally going to stop talking, or you're just going to talk for the sake of it. And I think it's the same with improv. If you're on scene with someone that's not helping you build a scene, it can sometimes be quite hard. So I think I like the idea of offers, or being there if something falls flat, then they're helping you, or vice versa. It needs to work both ways.
Yeah, cool. And when you're performing with Panders, do you like to give the other players gifts, or do you like to mess with them?
It depends who I'm on stage with. It really does depend, because some people it's sometimes really fun to pimp a player, because you know of their, like, especially when you're in improv, you know their limitations and what they would do. So when I'm on stage with someone like Caroline, love working with Caroline, but with Caroline, you would go on stage and you will see where the scene goes before, maybe throwing a curveball, because not that she couldn't deal with it, she's a fantastic improviser, it's the way you work with someone on stage. Whereas if I went on stage with someone like Michael or Ben, I would do it because sometimes it's fun seeing how they react to that sort of thing, or they're very good at becoming a person. So Mike is very good, like I've said before, about being silent, and about audio, and very physical as a character. So we always tend to try and give him really physical things. And like when we do rehearsals, we always try and make him do ridiculously crazy things all the time. But again, it depends who you're on stage with a lot of the time. But I think you have to feel comfortable before you can start go do this, because you don't know if they're going to be able to react or respond to it. Well, we do that sometimes a lot in Panders. It really depends on, but we're always up for a laugh.
But you do need to know the person, and
Yeah. To be fair, with understandably, we do a lot of social media. And one of the things we do is we do dub smashes just for the fun.
So what's a dub smash?
So a dub smash is an app where it's all music related again, where there's 30 seconds of some random song. So it could be anything from your blues to your S Cup 7s to Marilyn Manson, if you really want to go down that route. And then you sort of lip sync to it and dance to it or something, and you record it. It's a social media app, but we use it for social advertising ourselves.
Oh, right,
So we used to have a thing called Motivational Monday, where we would just record loads of random videos of us all doing random dancing and stuff. And we've done Christmas ones, we did a lot of Christmas song ones, and then Halloween we did a lot of Halloween ones. And then on normal days we would do things like Titanic's Celine Dion, and we had Michael and James Brass Banks doing the actual Titanic dance. We've had the guys, because we've got 4 boys in our group, we make the boy band Panders, and then we make them do all boy band stuff, and then they do dance routines and all that sort of thing. So they're that silly. So if they can be that silly doing stuff for social media where everyone can see it, they're fine to do things on stage and offers and stuff that we give them. So
Yeah, because I made a note of the fact that you do really good sort of social media kind of video kind of things to promote the groups, which is lots of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I mean, when we do rehearsals, we don't take videos because if rehearsing, you don't want people to see you rehearsing. But photos we don't feel are a bad thing. We do take a lot, but we try and present them in funny ways when we put them on social media. And like I said, the videos, we do a lot of them. But what I noticed with when we were doing show promotions, and we still try and do it a lot now, is like we like to do trailers to run alongside, sort of because it's so different. And I think maybe because I'm a video editor person, I like doing that sort of thing. But then again, the guys don't mind doing that sort of thing as well. So when we lost Chloe and Kevin, I thought instead of just introducing new people, I was like, no, this is a big change. I know we're not a big group, but let's do something to be interesting. And I just met a director guy called Max Sobel through one of my TV jobs, and he was like, he does a lot of comedy in his spare time as well with his group called See You Next Tuesday, and they do lots of random YouTube things on Tuesdays. But he loves doing that sort of thing, and he's got a really good voice. The voiceover is just like, I want to use you. So I had this idea of doing like a crime like short film to sort of like, where are they now? So we got him to do like a voiceover, and we did like a sort of American CSI like documentary based thing where me and James Stone were being like interviewed, like they were there, they're not there now, what's happened, we don't, that sort of story. And then we did reenactions of like them texting and stuff. And it got quite a lot of hits online. So we thought when we introduced the new group, we'd do a video then. So we just did a little silly video, and then we did like a lot of graphic stuff to sort of promote them coming in. But whenever we release a new show, we try and theme it. The show is always Improv Towers, but we like theming our posters because it's fun to do, and it's different to what some people do. It's nice to have a themed poster, always based on some parody of whatever. So for one of our shows, we based it on Guardians of the Galaxy, but called it Guardians of Improvisation.
Oh, right, yeah.
So then what we did is we just basically did a mock of the trailer, where we had I played loads of random different roles as these random makeup because I was leading the show. I was the host that night. I didn't really want to be one of the heroes of the show, so I thought have them as all the hero parts because that makes sense. So we filmed it through some of our rehearsals, and then I edited it, we edited it together and made these trailers, and it went really well. And it's fun, and we enjoy doing it. Sometimes we don't have the time to do the massive trailer, but we try and fit them in when we can because it's something that's different to it's fun to do.
Yeah, cool. Right, big final question.
Okay, go on then.
So, what's your signature move when you're on stage? What does everyone go, oh, classic Holly, saving the day again with her signature move?
Oh dear. I don't know I would say physical is my thing. I love being wacky, and I think I would say just from doing rehearsals and stuff with Understandably and from stuff we used to do in Newcastle, I think physical games are my forte. In our group, I mean, Caroline knows that I'm a huge fan of Charlie Chaplin, so if there's anything physical, she'll always go, Charlie Chaplin, Harley, sort of thing. But I would say, I suppose physical is my favourite thing to do. I love doing physical comedy. I like being the wacky person, not always making sense on stage, but just moving about like a loony and hoping it gets justified. I would say that. Well, can I just mention one more thing before we go? Because our show this year for Understandably, we've been doing 10-minute sets and stuff here and there, but in May we're actually doing our first. We've booked out the Miller for a night, and we're actually. It's a big step. Yeah. But because people were saying to us, you should do. It's a format you can extend. So on the 22nd of May we've booked the venue out.
Wow.
So we're going to have a few support acts and and have an actual show, but. Unlike other shows where they have like the support acts and then the show, we're actually going to make it one big show with the support acts intertwined.
Whoa! Very exciting, very exciting.
So that's our big project for this year.
Yeah, and when's that?
The 22nd of May.
22nd of May, right. Okay,
yes.
Cool.
So I don't think I have anything. I can talk for ages, I'm sorry.
Well, still, that's very much what I want from my guests. they are unable to talk, then they are not a good guest. And you have been a good guest. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Bye.
I made this.
That's improv!